You're dialed in to Byron Velvic's Fish Tales. Real talk, real tactics, and the stories that make it all worthwhile. Here's Byron.
Hey, Byron Velvic, Fish Tales. Oh, man. Hey, if you're interested in buying tackle, there's a reason why the thumbnail to this show is all about eBay. Because my guest today is the reason I got involved in eBay. And you talk about reselling fishing tackle on eBay. That's what I started doing a lot after I retired from fishing. And it was Brody of the Lake, Brody Broderick, who told me, dude, you got to start selling all your stuff. And the reason, guys, why this thumbnail is actually Holy Grail. How do people recognize Monty Python and the Holy Grail? Because Brody Broderick was the squire. He traveled with me. We fished together, and we did this. And then after we were fishing together, he was my co-angler. We fished some tournaments together. We're going to get all into that. I'm going to bring him on in a minute. But I got to tell you guys, stay tuned towards the end of the show when we start talking about all the cool stuff that Brody has listed on Brody of the Lake. All this stuff I'm going to be listing all week long. You know, this is right here. This was my grandfather's reel. Normally, there's my grandfather's reel here, but I actually put one of these cool little 4.5 ounce Hobby-O, like super exclusive Asian reel that you don't see a whole lot of. I got all these things that are in Byron's bunker that I'll never use, ever use. And Brody's got a bunch of stuff. At the end of the show, we're not only are we going to talk about all the cool stuff we're selling on eBay, but we're going to give every one of you that's watching the show or listening to the show a code. And if you have a winning bid, or if you buy something, either buy it now or winning bid, and you put in Friends of Fish Tales, FOFT, just in the message section, Brody and I are both going to send something extra. So this is kind of like an eBay super sale Fish Tales podcast. But Brody's so much more than eBay. And like I said, it was towards the end of our relationship as a friendship while I was on tour that he said, hey, if you're retiring, bro, open up Byron's bunker, take all your tackle, start selling it, because he was selling it for me before that. Like he sells for Ish, and he sells for John Cruz, and he sells for Jay Yellis, and you know, all the Van Dam, and you name it. He'll go through the list of guys he sold for, but he sold for so many guys. And the problem is they got to get all that tackle to Brody in Ohio, and they have to ship it all to him for him to sell it. And Brody's like, dude, don't ship everything to me anymore. Just start selling it yourself on your own eBay store. So that's how Byron's Bunker was born. Byron's Bunker was born. That's catchy. But Byron's Bunker was born because of Brody Broderick. That's a lot of B's right there. Brody Broderick, here he is. I'm throwing out Byron's Bunker was born because of Brody Broderick. Can I throw out any more B's? This is the guy right here, man. And Brody and I go way, way, way back. And Brody, you started eBay. Dude, you were one of the very first people to ever sell on eBay in the world of fishing.
Yeah, when I started selling eBay in 1998, God, 28 years ago. And back then it was mostly collectibles like Pez dispensers, stamp collections, coins. And all of a sudden, at that time, it wasn't Brody of the Lake. It was just Brody Bass. And I was just selling some of my own tackle. But mostly at that time, I was selling antiques. I was going through little old ladies, garages and attics and selling stuff for them online. And I quit. I started doing so well in 2000. I quit my job and just went eBay full time and fishing full time.
Weren't you one of? I mean, eBay assigns you a number when you're a seller.
Yeah,
and weren't you some ridiculously low number?
It's like 786 or something like that. I was the 786 customer that signed up for eBay. Yeah, I was like first generation.
And you know what you taught me, Brody? This is the coolest thing. All of you guys are going to get smoking deals because Brody said, hey, listen, put it up for auction, start it off at $1, and just let the consumer decide what price it's going to go for. So like you put all these expensive things out there, but you're like, you know what? It might go for $10. It might go for $4. It might go for $40. But you taught me about the world's greatest garage sale. Like, this is so cool. It's the world's greatest garage sale. And a lot of anglers, they get some cool deals because they're getting these amazing things. And some auction items that I've had are 99-cent starting price and they never go higher. So somebody gets it for 99 cents.
Yeah, it happens all the time. But once you put, when you're putting these large loads of items on, just due in part to the fact that it's sold along with everything else. The yield becomes off, quite well for those guys that are willing to give me up their tackle, ship their tackle to me. It costs, hundreds of dollars to ship it to me. I think in the end, it works out to where if they actually sold it themselves at a yard sale, I think I can make that up, and they make a little extra if they give me the time to sell it.
Who all? I can't even remember the list.
Okay. Well, there would be 12 to 13 Bassmaster Classic winners
that have given you stuff to sell.
Yeah. It's probably just as many Angler of the Years.
Yeah.
Guys from long-term guys, John Cruz,
Jay
Mark
Ellis,
Davis, Jay Ellis,
I skipped the list. Kevin Van Dam, Skeet Reeves,
Mike Iaconelli. It took me 2.5 years to do Denny Brower's retirement load. We did a half a semi truck full of stuff when he moved to down Lake Amistad. God love Danny. I love you, Danny.
Gosh, and he watches the show. Danny's been on the show.
I hope he is. You know what? We were actually standing backstage at the last elite event, and Danny was retiring, and I had a horrible injury in my hand, which we'll also talk about. And Danny's just like, I want to invite you out, Brody. I'm retiring. I'm moving to Texas. Will you sell my stuff for me? Well, at that time, I had no idea it was going to be a semi and a half full of stuff. I had to get storage units to actually put it in. And that really increased my business, because that's when I left the elites and was really able to really take off from there. I thought maybe I had a couple years after the elites to continue getting stuff from the guys. And here we are 16 years later or whatever since I left the elites, and I'm still going.
See, here's the thing, everybody watching. What happens is all the guys on tour are talking about it. They're like, I got all this stuff. I'll never use it. I got more tackle than I could ever use. Hey, hit up Brody, hit up Brody, hit up Brody. And Brody, I mean, you put your kids through school. This was your primary income. This paid all your bills. And it gave you the flexibility to come out and go fishing with us and even get more stuff. Like some of us, I remember I was coming that direction to fish, and I'd load up my truck or my Astro van back in the day with all of my stuff that I wanted to get rid of and bring it and drop it off to you. And then I'd watch the auctions and see you just blowing all this stuff out that I can't believe the prices you would get for it. And you know what I love, Brody? This is what I love most about eBay. And I know I've told you this before, but I got to tell the audience, it's when you put these things on auction, somebody really wants it and they appreciate getting it and they're excited about it. If I took all my old wave worms, okay, I got a ton of wave worms, right? And my old, these are the old live targets, right? The old live targets. Mm-hmm. These things are discontinued, the wave worms, all the stuff, the old Berkeley baits that are discontinued. But somebody out there that's one of the viewers right now, or somebody that is dying to find that old live target again, or that old wave worm again. And so it's more than just selling it. It's knowing you're getting baits that you'll never use and you're just dismissing into a bin somewhere that means something to somebody. Like that's a bar of gold. And I know you've had those stories, Brody. Like I had that blade dancer story. The guy with the Berkeley blade dancer, and he said, I fished that bait with my dad when I was a kid. I can't believe you have them new in the package. And how many do you have? Because I'll buy them all right now. Like he goes, I'm shocked that you're breaking out a Berkeley blade dancer. And that bait has been discontinued for 15 years. But he saw one on the auction item. And Brody, you know what I mean? Like he goes, I want my kid and I to go fishing with these baits. So you just did me a big favor by selling me all these blade dancers. That's awesome, dude. Right?
I remember when you called and told me that story, and it reminded me so many different ones over the years where I actually have a little list that I used to keep where guys are like, oh, if you ever get these in on consignment, please don't put them on eBay. Call me first. Wiggle words to chicken footworms there's been just so many requests, that everybody wants. And majority of the things I do sell are discontinued items. They've been in someone's, garage or storage unit for quite some time. They're either retiring or they're continuing to fish and continue to pile more. And this is just extra revenue I can give them and their family to do extra things with.
Right.
And I've been blessed to 26 years of all these anglers, trusting me with their equipment. you know, and go, I can remember crawling through boats, and like you said, everybody used to have a little box in the back of their truck. It was the Brody box, and anything you picked up, you know, free hats or whatever, it all went in this box. And at the end of the tournament, I would have all these boxes that I would head home with, and then I'd sell everybody's stuff, and then I'd bring everybody money back, you know, to the next tournament. And yeah.
Like Danny Uribe is here in San Antonio, and he does a lot of import-export stuff. So he goes, hey, I got these Habio reels. I mean, I had to Google this thing. It's this little, like, 4-ounce Premier, super expensive.
Yeah.
You have a whole bunch of these, right? And I've never been sponsored by these. I've never seen this reel in my entire life. And he's like, dude, sell those for me. So I'm doing a Brody thing now where, like, if he's got all these reels from, he went over to Asia and got these reels and brought them back, and they're not even in the U.S. market, but he's like, hey, put them on eBay, because I'm following Byron's Bunker. You know, I follow Brody of the Lake and Byron's Bunker, and I'm all in on you guys selling my stuff too. So now guys here in San Antonio are doing what you do, which is bringing me boxes of their stuff along with all the tackle I got. And I'm like, I don't need any of it. I'm retired. You know, I got my daughter. I got to put her through college, and I got all this stuff to sell on my own. But they're like, dude, just get me whatever you get for it. You know, and I think you said you take like 30% or 40% to cover shipping and handling and sale, or
yeah, we're, you know, into the sales tax for every state now. It's, you know, at least I have a good accountant, and everything's fine with that. But yeah, you know, it's a big undertaking to do the volume at one time that I was doing. Now I've kind of scaled back, doing part to, like you said, my kids are grown now and gone, and I used to use a lot of child labor when they were younger. Just
are you telling me I need to use camera
boxes of Cincos and just throw them in the living room and like, hey, separate them by color, guys, and, you know, bring them popsicles after about an hour, and, you know.
Hey, dude, that's another thing. Okay, so you find out like Cincos, there was the original Cincos that were being made at Page, at Lake Powell, you know, in Page, Arizona or Utah, and now a new guy has bought it, so he's making them. So everybody's crazy now for the old packages of Cincos. Dude, we got tons of them, and it's a green. You know, and so now people are messaging me saying, hey, I saw Byron's Bunker. You used to sell a bunch of Cincos, you know, from the old days. Do you still have all these old vintage, the real deal, the OG Cinco, not the new version of the Cinco? Isn't that crazy? So these companies, they change. The Huddleston swim baits changed, and so everybody wants the old Mesquite, Nevada Huddleston swim bait, you know, and everything else. And you know, you taught me something important, Brody, which is key: following the tournaments, seeing what they're catching them on, and then posting that stuff. Like right now, I got a whole bunch of those dice I need to put on there, the fuzzy dice and the you know, all the live.
Dude, you're lucky you have that. See, most of my stuff is like either discontinued or you know, I got bulk supply of stuff. So you know, I'm all, you know, bladed jigs, you know, chatterbaiters, things. And so that's what I have been listening. And they're boom, you know, first few tournaments, you know, we're pretty much won on that, other than, you know, your finesse baits with live scope and stuff. But yeah.
Well, you know what? This is it, dude. This is, you know what season is? It's swim bait season. Dude, I looked it up. One of these just sold for $450 on eBay. That's a Piz. $450 for that eBay, for that Piz. I got like 4 or 5 of these, and I got the Regos, you know, the old school Regos. But you're like swim bait season. Start blowing out all those swim baits you got. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Brody. I'm like, swim baits and forward-facing baits, and it's like eBay. It's like, hey, it's time to get started again. And I love that you're like a personal trainer to me.
I try to, you know, do the eBay very similar to what, you know, if I was actually out there fishing. You know, you got to play the seasonal patterns, you know, so play the seasonal patterns on eBay. And a lot of times in the fall, you'll actually see my store kind of transfer over to more hunting outdoor gear that I'll get from a lot of the professional outdoor hunters and stuff that have actually used my store as well. So I'll stockpile that stuff until, you know, September and have a lot of hunting gear on.
So you actually, you'll switch gears and you'll get into more hunting. Even the fishermen probably send you a bunch of hunting stuff.
They sure do,
like
the
Hackneys and everybody, you know, the Hackneys.
Because all of them have a sponsorship for 2 or 3 years with, you know, whoever, Mossy Oak or whatever. And the next thing they're Realtree Outdoors. So they send all their Mossy Oak gear, you know, and and boom, I just flip it.
There is something everybody watching the show needs to realize. On eBay, when we're selling stuff, a lot of times, once you switch sponsors, all of that stuff has to get blown out pretty quickly because you're not using it anymore. So you've made a major sponsor move. Suddenly you have the old, and I won't even say the brands because I got them. I'm going to put them on eBay. But the old brands from the previous sponsors. And you're like, man, I can't use it anymore. Contractually, I'm not going to have it on my boat. So I got tons in Berkeley. That's how it was with Berkeley. Going all the way back to Berkeley, I got a bazillion pounds of Berkeley Gulp, Berkeley Power, Berkeley everything. Because when I was with them, they were sending me just cases of it because I was doing my TV show. Yeah. So I got Berkeley saltwater, Berkeley freshwater, but because I was doing my TV show, they wanted everything to be on the show. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And again, it was like, God, Brody, you really taught me a lot. And the best thing about you is you're always calling me saying, dude, start listing stuff on eBay. Start listing stuff on eBay. Open Byron's Bunker back up. Like, yep. I know you got a lot going on with the podcast and your daughter and volleyball and pole vaulting, but bro, eBay gets hot, then eBay gets cold. Then eBay gets hot, then eBay gets cold. And it's a lot of fun. But dude, I'm excited because like this show and then the social media things, that's the kind of stuff that, people will say, hey, FOFT, a friend of Fishtails, and we're throwing extra stuff that we have laying around in the package when we ship it out. And I thought that would be really cool for those of you that are watching the podcast, anybody that's a friends of Fishtails, we got to give them some extra stuff if they buy on either Byron's Bunker or Brody the Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the backstory to this whole thing, guys. The reason the thumbnail had the Monty Python and the Holy Grail is because we were both vintage old school dudes. And if you remember the Holy Grail, if you've seen that thing, there's a little squire in the back that's popping the coconuts. So for whatever, they never had horses in the show. They had King Arthur and they had the squire. So if you go back and look at the thumbnail, you see me with the king. We had to put my face in there and you were Patsy. Hey, Patsy.
Come on, Patsy.
And he's popping the coconuts as they're going through the field, and it's such a great, because this is how Brody started. Like Brody, you had the coat of arms, and I think it was it Fishburne up on stage.
That didn't start. That didn't even start until actually I met you, and that was the year that they did away with the West. We met at Lake Murray. First year they did away with the West Coast tournaments. You had nowhere to go. And you guys had to come east. That was the first year they did away with the boat-on-boater pairing. It was the first non-boater. So I was one of the first non-boaters in the Bassmaster Opens. And
if I remember correctly, you had to bring somebody to be guaranteed to have some. If you didn't bring somebody, you could end up on a pro draw, right? Do you remember that? It was like
back in the day.
You brought somebody with you to the Bassmaster event, then you got to be guaranteed the use of your boat. But if you did bring somebody and they didn't have enough non-boaters or AAAs or whatever you want to call it, then you were going to go mano a mano with another pro. You were going to have to be the flip the coin, and you may not get the use of your boat. So the way to guarantee the use of your boat was for me to have you with me.
It turned out to be that way. I was like a federation president at the time in Ohio, and we had the big main guy, I'm trying to think of his name, from Bass, come to each of the state federation things and said, hey, we're going away from the boat-on-boat draws at the Opens. We're going to team them up with a non-boater, and we would like to, invite so many of the federation guys. That's what they wanted. They wanted the Shield guys, to come. And they wanted state team members, the guys that were, running the clubs. They knew that we would show up and show up big. And we did. I mean, there were 4 of us from the state of Ohio. Back then there was no internet or nothing like that. We had no idea where we were going to stay. There was no bed and,
VRBO, no VRBO, no Airbnb.
Yeah, there was none of that. And I remember reading in the back of the Bassmaster on Lake Murray about this fish camp place. And I was like, man, dude, this is where we got to stay. We got to stay. So 4 of us, first non-boater deal. We're going to be on the back of all these pros. Who are we going to draw? We take 2 boats. We drive to South Carolina. We stay at this fish camp. And lo and behold, you and Aaron Martins are our neighbor right next to us.
Yeah.
And,
that's right. I forgot about that.
Very first deal.
We were camping out. That's, this is why I wanted you to be on the show. And I didn't want to talk about this before because here we are on the podcast. Aaron and I were at the campground together and you guys were staying right next door.
Yeah, right
and
next door.
And that was it. Was it you and Gary Rings, or who was it?
Yeah, it was me and Rings.
Which became his lifelong
driving Aaron,
partner.
driving Amart, the driving Amart guy.
Driving Miss Daisy. Instead of driving Miss Daisy, it was Gary. Because he used to have guys, everybody, it was called Rings because this dude, he
had more earrings than
Dennis Rodman. Than Dennis Rodman. He had more piercings than Dennis Rodman. Dude, he was all jacked up. And Aaron loved him. Aaron and Leslie loved Gary Rings. And Gary was there right until the very end, you know.
Till the very end. He was awesome. He was at his deathbed,
At his side, at his bed and everything. Yeah. And you know, you and I go all the way back. And the crazy part that blows me away, Brody, like every now and then we talk, and I didn't want to talk any more than we did this now on the podcast, but you're like, oh yeah, remember we were at Columbia River and we were putting your boat back together? I'm like, that's right. You and I were in Washington on the Columbia River, and my boat.
We added 3 foot to your boat. we made your 21.5-foot boat a 24.5-foot boat.
Guys, my boat separated. It was so rough on the Columbia River, which is normal when the wind blows. I'm going down, and all of a sudden I see my cap is this way, my hull's this way. So when I come in, we got to put the boat back together. And what was it? We added yardsticks, wasn't it?
We added 3 foot. It was a great idea, actually. We were walking through Lowe's or Home Depot, and Byron's trying to figure out how am I going to rivet this thing back together when everything, all the fiberglass is all blown out, and there's like this big box of like yardsticks. And he was like, you like see these light bulbs go off in both of our heads, and we're like grabbing these yardsticks. Well, when we get back to the garage, we're staying at this real sweet house that you had to set up with some drag racers or something.
Okay, so I was a boat rep. This is great. You guys are getting the inside scoop here. I was a boat rep, and I was there because they were the dealer. It was that Travelers Marine. It was that, remember, it was a big dealer at the Columbia River. Yeah. And so that was the son. It was a family-owned business, and they had a big dealership, and they carried my boat line. And at the time, I was the manufacturer's rep out west. So, and I'll go ahead and tell you, it was a Viper boat because they're not around anymore. It wasn't my Bass Cat. It wasn't my Triton. It wasn't my Camus, which is new
John
boat
Story.
company. But it was the old Viper. And it came apart, and they were my Viper dealer, Traveland in Washington, and we got to stay at
I remember now something else too. Want to say because I had to
go ahead. This is Traveland. But so anyway, the reason we say we added 3 feet is we're taking these yardsticks around the rail, and we're taking my Viper, and we get it back.
Fit in there perfect.
And we get it back together, so it's monolithic again. All the fiberglass is blown out, but it was so rough. People were getting their boats ripped apart on the Columbia River. Yeah. And you and I sat in his garage that night, drinking a bunch of beers, telling a bunch of funny stories, and riveting that boat back together like a NASCAR drag race.
We were up till like 2:30 in the morning, riveting that thing back together, and it held up. It held up through the cut and stuff like that. And you made the cut. I didn't make the cut, and that was my first event up there. I think I was with one of the Bennett brothers, and remember we sank right outside of like Hat Rock or something like that. Yeah.
My gosh. Yeah. I forgot about that.
Oh,
you guys were sinking out there.
Yeah, I was with one that young Bennett boy, and we made it back, but it wasn't a good event for him or me.
So that's where Brody came with me all around the country, and all of us pros had these guys that were traveling with us. And do you remember, like famously, guys got to hear this. Timmy Horton had a guy that was hyper aggressive, and his only goal was to take out a pro each day. Do you remember that? Do you remember that story? Yeah. This guy was a bass ninja. I got to tell you guys the story of Timmy Horton's co-angler. There was a lot of strategy involved. And if you brought a guy that was like a bass ninja, and he was going to cast over your line, he was going to catch fish behind you. I mean, he could get in your head. And Timmy Horton had a guy, and I drew him at Clark's Hill. And in that world, when you were running with me and all that stuff, and we're having a great time, there were those certain pros that bought guys that pushed the other pros hard. It was a strategy. It was a way to get you. If I'm Timmy Horton, I want to knock at least one pro out, so I'm going to use my squire, my Brody Broderick, as a guy that's going to be over the top.
I really think that was the reason why they inevitably did away with it.
Wow, really?
I do. Yeah. I mean, because it got ruthless. I was never that person, and I think that's why I was able to be successful with eBay. I didn't make too many enemies along the way, but you know what I mean. I didn't try to sabotage anybody.
They were schooling at Clark's Hill, Brody. Got to tell you a story. And you probably, I know you heard this because you were with me, but you probably forgot it. But they're schooling, and I'm angling the boat so the guy, at least, because I'm trying to catch these fish, and I'm fishing, for $100 and something $1,000. And this guy's in the back. Well, he's not even in the hunt the first day. He had a horrible first day draw. So he's not even in it. He wants to make the cut, but he had nothing the first day. And he's like, and so I'm culling, and he's casting as the boat's drifting. I got to run up there and try to keep the boat off the point. And he's making the longest cast he can. I'm like, dude, don't cast to those fish. Or not, you're not allowed to say that. You weren't allowed to tell them where to cast. But you're like, hey, there's a rule here where you're allowed to cast. You got to angle the boat. And they weren't allowed to cast past the console. Do you remember that? Yeah. The rule was they could cast from the steering wheel that way. It's like take an imaginary line of the boat, and you can fish that way, but you can't cast that way. So my only defense, Brody, was to try to keep the boat pointed directly at the point so he wouldn't cast over. But he was, I'm calling, and I hear him going, got one. And he's reeling it over me. And I'm like, what the heck? And I'm calling, and there's a rod in the line. I'm like, dude, you're not supposed to cast her. He goes, oh, the boat drifted. I had a clean shot. You're like, dude, Tony Horton, I'm still mad at you for this. Tony, if you're watching it. Timmy Horton. Sorry, Timmy Horton. I'm saying Tony Horton because that's the workout guy, and that's not who I'm talking about. Dude, we had some amazing times, bro.
We sure did. And to be honest with you, dude, I thank you so much because you let me travel with you. Where Brody the Lake actually came from was the last event on the West Coast. So we met when they did away from the West Coast. You guys came east, had fairly good season. The next season, you were like, hey, man, why don't you come out west and fish with me out here and help me drive? And so when we went to the Columbia River after that event, you had to go to Spain. So
because we had the Euro Cup. I was the team captain for the Euro Cup.
And I drove that boat back to Utah with 3 extra foot on it and left it. Remember? And left it there. I made sure that they were closed and I had the code to get in the gate, and I left it and then took off and drove to your place.
Where did you leave it? Oh, you left it at the dealership, or where?
Yeah, left it somewhere in Utah. You gave it, and it was behind some gated deal. And then
that was the repair facility. There was a repair shop in Salt Lake City that they told me to take it. So we leave the Columbia River with yardsticks. Everybody, we have yardsticks all the way around the cap of the boat.
As far as I know, you didn't tell them. And you flew to Spain, and then I went on back to Vegas and got on a plane and went back to Ohio for about a month and then came back. And didn't he bring that boat down to Lake Mead and start fishing out of it?
Yep.
And it separated. And then he brought it back to your house, and he was like, where are these yardsticks from?
The boat comes apart. There's all these Lowe's yardsticks are sticking out from it. They're like, does this factory in Arkansas build boats with yardsticks in it?
And then Byron had to eventually tell him the story. Yeah, we had the whole Pac-Man thing, and we had to zip it up, and Well,
dude, you remember that. You remember the pinball machine. I mean, there's the Fish Tales pinball machine.
Sure do. I probably lived at your place for at least 3 months, on and off, and a lot of times, we were doing stuff like that, playing pinball.
Fishtails pinball machine was at the Money House at Lake Mead. So this pinball machine, like I've told before on the podcast, and had so many high scores on it because he would not want to lose. If somebody else took a high score from him, he would come back and take it. And there's Rock the Boat. There's how many jet skiers you killed. Hold on, a moment of silence. I'm going to turn in memory of my buddy Aaron. I got to turn it on. Let's see if it still makes that sound. Here we go. Ready? Let's see. Oh wait, here we go. Come on. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
You hear that? I got to make sure that soundtrack is... Don't move! It's like all this crazy stuff is happening back there. But Aaron, I'd hear this at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to shut this off. Brody,
You
I'd
had
be
the best
sleeping.
place there. You had the best
I'd be
place.
sleeping, Brody, and I'd hear that thing going at 3 a.m. I'd go, "What is going on out in the living room?" And Aaron would be out there playing at 2 or 3 a.m. before a tournament. He'd be out there hitting Fishtail's pinball machine, dude. And it was like, somebody broke my record. Somebody broke my record. Who was in here? Who's CTA? Who's CTA? CTA just took over the most boats rocked. And I'm like, Aaron, we're trying to sleep. There's a fishing tournament getting ready to start. And you've been around all of it, dude. That's our friendship goes back 25, 30 years, I think, which is really cool to have you on the show. Yep. And I got to tell, dude, one of the craziest, absolute craziest stories, and everybody is going to be treated to a hell of a story right now, and you're going to be basically the start of this. Brody Broderick comes with me to Clear Lake and draws Dave Glevy.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah, dude. Wait till everybody, I want to hear it again, and I'm just going to let it go. If anybody, we're a future guest is Dave Glevy, everybody. And Rick Clun is like, please make that happen. So this story you're about to tell is going to be part of the Dave Glevy
It kind of gives me chills, dude. I can't believe you're bringing that up.
Dude, I am here. I want to hear it again because I can't hear it enough.
So yeah, I think this was the second event on that West Coast tour, and we're going to Clear Lake, and everything I've ever read about, and I'm like, oh my God, we're going to this place, and there again, I have been a long-term Bassmaster, all the way back to I was like 12. I just wanted to be a pro and stuff. So I read about these West Coast guys like, D. Thomas and Dave Glevy, and I had their little trading cards and, all that stuff. And we're sitting at the Money House on Clear Lake. Who was that? Broussard's place?
John Broussard at Clear Lake.
Rest his soul.
Yep.
Rest his soul. Yep. I heard he passed away.
He did pass away. Yep.
Yeah, and we're at his place, and what a remarkable tournament, because everyone at that house actually was truly a money house, because we all cashed a check, even the non-voters. I think because it was me, Roderick Lee was a non-voter at that. I think who else was there? But anyway, Skeet was at the house. You were at the house. Aaron, there was a bunch.
Yeah, Aaron. Everybody that stayed there, guys, the Money House at Clear Lake was right at the end of a canal, and John Broussard owned the dealership there. He turned me on to the swim bait bite. He's the reason I set that 83.5 pounds. He took me to Byron's Corner. He introduced me to Byron's Corner. So that's how Byron's Corner came to be. But to your point, the Money House, you stayed there. You pretty much made some money.
Yeah. So I think we're there. It would have been the second day that I drew Glevy. And the night before, Skeet and all you guys are just like pumping me up. They're like, oh my God, you're fishing with Glevy, dude. And you got to remember, this is the first year, actually this would have been the second year that it wasn't pro on pro, it was a non-voter thing. And I don't want to put any pressure on anybody, let alone some, childhood, hero that I had. I'm like, oh my God, this is Glevy. So that morning, I'm kind of nervous about, am I going to have to back him in and stuff like that? And we're at Clear Lake, and it's like, this big ass ramp, and it's all kind of weird. And so I'm nervous about that. And then it's foggy. So now I'm sitting in Dave Glevy's truck in the passenger seat, and he's smoking like a chain. I bet he had like 10 cigarettes in 20 minutes, and it's just like Cheech and Chong cloud of tobacco smoke in there. And I'm afraid to even talk to him. He's got his hood up, and he's got the old, what would you use, jersey jackets that they wore,
Yeah.
Tight with the, I don't ask him too many questions, and I think even bum a couple smokes off of him, but I don't even think I was smoking at the time. And so we go out, and he's worried that the time constraint, because I think we lost like a half hour because of a fog delay. And so instead of going right, he goes left real quick to make a quick run to, I think in his head, to make a decision. And he had a brush pile that he wanted to fish. And we get there, Byron, and you guys, this is right when Drop Shot came out. You guys were showing, I'd learned how to drop shot from you at Lake Martin that first year and stuff like that. And so we get to this brush pile, and Glevy's like driving straight into it, leaving me out in the middle. There's nowhere to fish. And
wait, so this isn't an underwater brush pile. He drives into a big
there's an obvious brush pile, big obvious brush pile. And when he gets to the brush pile, there's a freaking otter in it.
Okay.
And so Gleby starts doing like this whistle, click, click, chatter thing. And this freaking otter like comes right to the damn boat. And I don't know if he had grapes or cherries or something. And he kind of threw one in the water. And that freaking otter like takes off to the other side of the bank. And Gleby throws this way, just not the right looking drop shot, just big egg shaped weight with an exposed hook, and just throws it right into the brush pile. Great exposed hook. And I'm thinking, man, he's going to get hung on this very first cast. What the hell is this? I thought this guy was a flipper. And he was like, boom, sets, bam, 2.5 pounder, whatever. I mean, first cast. And I'm like, damn, this dude just calls the otters out of there, throws in their exposed rig.
He's Dr. Doolittle.
Dude, this is Dave Glevy.
Dr. Doolittle.
Don't even have the jig in his hand.
Right.
So he doesn't fish, much anymore there. And we take off. And that's when he makes the decision. He's just like, we're leaving this lake. And I'm like, what? We're leaving this lake. And he runs all the way up towards Broussard's place and then takes off up in that creek. I can't remember the name.
Rodman. He goes into Rodman Creek.
Dude, he goes into Rodman and then goes
yeah.
into who knows where. I mean, we're off the freaking map. He's got me up in the front of the boat, and he's pinballing. He's fishtail pinballing all the way back through there, and we get in, and he settles all in, and he's just sitting there, and he just smokes a cigarette. And just sits there for, 6-7 minutes for him to smoke a cigarette. And then he gets up in the front and he starts his flipping.
No, wait. Before that, I remember the way you told the story, like he's going back there and you're like, well, you're like, we got to get ready to fish. This is the end. And it's not the end. He just keeps going. And so it's like every time you thought you were coming to the end of the creek and there was just a wall of bushes, you're like, yeah. Oh God, we're still going. And he goes, and he just keeps on going. And you're like, oh my God, hold on. so I remember.
So we 4-wheel drive all the way back in there.
4-wheeling way back farther than you could have ever imagined going.
Yeah.
And what happens? So he sits there.
He gets up there. There at the time, I'm just, learning the trade, and coming from Ohio, we never really used braided line, so I show up, oh, wow, I'm fishing with Gleby, bring out the big flipping sticks. I got 25-pound big game on and all that, and Gleby's, got his, braided line and stuff. And he proceeds down these little creek edges, and he's just hitting what in his mind is the right side of every little out piece of wood structure, and he won't cast in anything else because it's a waste of time.
It had to be just the one side of one piece of structure,
right?
Like every time.
So, but he's not telling me that. But in my head, this is what I'm reading. You know what I mean? Because the whole time he's got his hood up, he runs down and not talking anything. Dude, we're not there like 20 minutes and he's already got the limit. And then what was really neat, and I think I've showed you and I've showed Ski, the Gleby release. Now, you can only do this with braided line and a good size flipping jig. And he would set the hook on that fish. He knew it wasn't a keeper. He'd bring it close to the boat and somehow do this little swing, and he'd literally be able to pop the jig out of its mouth without ever touching the fish. The fish never would ever leave the water. He did that 3 or 4 times. It was the Gleby release, dude.
So he reels the fish up to the side of the boat.
He
and
would do it, wouldn't keep, and then he'd do this thing and pop the jig out of its mouth.
Wow. Hey, right now, I don't know if Kent Brown was on our show. We're talking about Dave Gleby. I've had Rick Clun talk about it. Guys, there's going to be a whole show about Dave Gleby. I promise you. It's coming. But Kent Brown tells me that now he's working in Manteca at Bass Pro Shop, and he's at the reel counter. And all these kids who don't know who he is, these kids are going in there. These kids are going in there to buy tackle, and they're like, hey, there's this old guy at Bass Pro Shop who's selling reels at Bass Pro Shop, and he can cast better than anybody I've ever seen on the planet. And Kent Brown's laughing. He's like, dude, you're talking to the legend, Dave Gleby, at Bass Pro Shop. Because he'll say, oh, here. And he starts doing a couple you got to see it firsthand, but it's like he starts casting, and these little tour pros are talking to Kent Brown. They go, there's an old man, dude, and he is some kind of weird dude at Bass Pro Shop in Northern California, and he's a casting machine. And Dave Gleby, that's your Dave Gleby, dude.
He is the man. So after just precision, It's just amazing watching this man work. I was able to manage a really nice limit. And we're getting down on time, and Glebe, all of a sudden, he's just out of the blue, because he didn't really talk or say anything all day, just starts yelling, bees, 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 bees. And he's like looking at me, and I'm like, what the hell? And he just, jumps in his box and stuff. And I think he winds up pulling out an old little Bagley honeybee, just this tiny little crankbait. And yeah, man, he found the bee all right. Winds up catching like his best keeper of the day. And no, it wasn't. Well, at the time, it was the best keeper of the day. And as soon as he gets it in the boat, he's like, "We got to go, we got to go." And so we're racing out. We get, I don't know how far, and we're almost out of time. And he's like, "I want to stop one more place," but we don't stop there because there was a boat. And then all of a sudden, he's just like, "Cows, the cows." And that's where we stopped at that one spot. And when we stopped, he said the cows were all laying down when we went by them this morning. And he said, they're all up feeding now.
Right.
And soon as we went over there, he caught, that was his kicker fish that wound up putting it. I think he took third place in that event that year at Clear.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah, I was on the boat to witness what I've always read about and felt like nature's cues. I felt a lot of times when I, successful, I was, honing in on that, but to literally see to witness it firsthand with Dave Glevy, it was a day, dude. I mean, the man talked to otters, he had bees all over his head, and then all of a sudden we got 10 minutes left, and he's stopping at the cows because they're not laying down anymore.
Dude, that reminds me, and I know I may have told you a story, but you may have forgotten. Maybe I haven't told you a story, but nobody here has heard the story, because this is cool. Like, your story just reminded me of one that I have not told this in 20 years. But in my early days of pro draw, Brody, I drew Stacy King. Stacy King and I drew each other at the Great Lakes. And we go out around the Cape Vincent or whatever it's called. We're heading to Chameau Bay and Henderson Bay. And, we pull up out there. There's all the big smallmouth out in the main lake out there, Lake Ontario. We go out of Clayton, New York. And it's that. And we get out there, and exactly like you, Stacy King, there's a huge farm up on this pastoral, beautiful New York farm. And we're out there in this big giant bay, and all the cows are sitting there, and Stacy shakes his head. He goes, "Darn it," he goes, "the cows are laying down." And I'm a West Coast guy. Like, all I have is Lake Mead horny toads and burros. We don't have a lot of nature where I'm fishing. The Colorado River chain. We don't get a lot of your elements to watch. So we don't have otters. We don't have cows. We don't have all this life, if you will. And there's zero life on the Colorado River chain, and the whole West Coast is kind of barren compared to this. But he's like, cows are laying down. He goes, "It'll be a while before we start catching them." And I'm like, what is he talking about? Right? I'm like, I'm fired up. Pro draw, one of my very first Bassmaster tournaments. I'm casting like crazy. And he goes, "It'll turn on." And pretty soon one or two cows pop up, and all of a sudden he catches one. And then a couple more cows pop up, and I catch one. And I'm watching these cows get up off of the field. And as it's developing, the bite's getting better and better and better. And it's nonchalant for Stacy King. Stacy's like, "Hey, this is just the way it is." And I'm like, I'm sitting here as a West Coast California guy going, I don't believe what I'm seeing. There, literally, by the time all the cows were grazing, we were culling. And I'm like, this is the coolest, to your point, the cow story, and I forgot about it. But Stacy King did that, and it's like those stories of nature talking to you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm curious to I don't know a lot of the new younger anglers. Hell, the last couple tournaments, the guys that won are literally, I think some of them are less than 20 years old. So that I've been out of the lease for 15 years. So those kids were like 5 years old. Yeah. I wonder if they still have those nature's cues.
No, they're looking at a box. That's the I don't want to sound like somebody else and go into the cheater box.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't want to go Randy Blockett on you. I'll put it that way. But I'm not. But there is that problem, and Rick and I were talking about it in the January podcast, The Mind of the Master. You don't see the osprey diving down. You don't see him grabbing bait. You're zeroed in on that box, and you're losing the cows and the bees and the otters. You're not seeing any of that. You are locked in on that box, and you are daylight to dark, staring at a video screen. And so, that one, I did a clip on Fishtails about the blue heron, and the blue heron on the points helping you find fish. I was with Mark Tucker, Brody.
Yeah.
And we were in the back of a pocket.
Too, man.
Mark Tucker, dude, he was a savvy old dude when it came to nature. And we're fishing in the very back of the pocket. He goes, "Hey man, the squirrels are getting active." He goes, "There goes a turkey call. Squirrels are getting active. Squirrels are bouncing around. Turkey call." He goes, "Oh, that moon's coming up." He goes, "That moon must be rising." I'm like, "What is he talking about, dude?" And he goes, "No, that much activity in the very back of a pocket." We go out, and sure enough, the moon has come up over the top of the lake.
Right.
And he's like, he knew it.
That's that. I mean, people are born with that. I mean, all of us are a hunter-gatherer, but that side of us is the hunter that gets so suppressed in our environment today.
Right.
And yeah, and that was a big part of why I think I inevitably made the elites and stuff, because I had that hunter in me. I just didn't know how to really do it until, like I said, I apprenticed under you, and then it just came from there. I mean, it was a remarkable story to shirt tail you up and then have someone below me do the same. And, Travis Manson shirt tailed me just like I shirt tailed you.
Oh,
and that had a lot to do with Mercury. And see, that there's another thing that's different. Back then they had a plan, and that plan was they went away from the boat on pro draw. They wanted that non-boater back there that inevitably became a marshal.
Yeah.
But during that transfer, that's where those non-boaters all became pros. Most of them did, dude.
Yes.
If you were back in, they did.
You were one of them. Pros. There were a lot of those. There were a lot of our guys you traveled with us, and you went pro. Like so many of you guys.
So it became that true apprenticeship. It was like, hey, I want to be a blacksmith. You go apprentice under a blacksmith.
Right.
And I remember telling Kevin Lipke from Mercury back then exactly what this was. This is what I'm doing. This is why I came out as a non-boater to the Bassmaster, was to find a pro to apprentice under. I didn't know who it was going to be, and it just happened to be you.
Right.
And so that second year, so the third event, we go to Havasu. And that's where, the points race, it's all over. And at that time, that's the only way you could move up into the pro level at that time, because they had to cut so many people because they went pro, co.
Right. Right.
You got your pro card, and that was like a big thing.
Yes.
Remember, it was like you had this like tour card, and I'm at Havasu, I'm from Ohio and no family, nothing, and I just got my tour card.
Remember that? Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's just they give it to the opens, but that's a huge, huge thing, and that's something to be able to sell.
It was like, in golf, if you made it to Q school, it's exactly like golf.
If
you got invited, you're on your way to the PGA, and you got invited to Q school, and you got this honorary invitation. You know what? You're not just a golfer anymore.
You have value now. You have value.
Yes.
So actually it was Fishburne, and I'm not sure about this, but that may have been the last tournament that Fishburne ever was the announcer for. I'm not 100%, but it could be. And he knighted me on stage, Brody of the Lake.
That's
where Brody of the Lake came from, was Lake Havasu, the final day where the tour's over. And he knighted me on stage, Byron Squire. We knight him with his tour card, Brody of the Lake.
And you create a coat of arms. I'm gonna have it right here in the show. There's a coat of arms.
Came home, .com'd it, made my own logo, and then you came that January and did. That's when you started working for Earl. You left Viper. You left John Story and went to Viper, and. You came. We had
I was with Ranger during the Bachelor thing. Remember the whole Bachelor thing?
Well, that was before this. This.
It was before all the Bachelor stuff. Yeah. So I was with Ranger at the time. I left.
Oh, that's
Viper,
right. That's right.
I went to Ranger.
That's
Keith Tripp and those guys got me in.
That's right. Because that's when the FLW M&M stuff was going on.
Yeah, the FLW
Old Hickory. Yeah. Anyway, that's a whole. Yeah.
Whole other story.
Let's not talk about that one. But so you come to do the boat show in Cincinnati. and you guys like take me out to dinner, and then you're like, hey, some I can't remember his name is coming from Triton, and he wants to talk to you. And I'm like, what the hell's going on, you know? And you never told me what was going on, and that's when Triton came and signed me. I
Yep.
mean, literally, you know,
That was Adam. It was Adam. Adam came. It was he's the CEO of Camus now. It's Earl's right hand man. But Adam was coming to dinner, and I was with Ranger, but I'm like, dude, you got to sign Brody, because Adam was looking, and he signed you to go with Triton, and it was at dinner.
Yeah,
So
and you guys
Adam
signed
watches the
me,
show.
and they're
Yeah.
like, we want you to go fish the opens. You know, take your tour card and go do it. You know, and I was just like, wow, you know, and it all took off from there. And then Mercury came right up, and did the same, so I was off and running. And that's right. I started fishing the opens, and you were trying your little stint over at the FLW side with possible M&M deal and stuff.
Yep.
And I was still fishing as your non-voter.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I remember that. Gosh, this is crazy. So did Brody of the Lake, you changed your eBay name to Brody of the Lake?
Yeah. So at that, back then when I was, first selling eBay, it was just Brody's Rare Treats. And then we'll go back to the Clear Lake event. And I flew in, and you were saying something like, man, I can't believe you sell all this stuff on eBay like that, make all that money. Because I remember showing you the store, and you were like, you think we could, sell some of this tackle? And you had all these boxes of these jerk baits.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. Yes.
The magenta.
The magentas, because I had one. And okay. So if you're watching the show on eBay this week, I'm going to put that bait, that little Japanese bait was Labina Lures. And it was, I won a tournament. I think I won San Carlos in Arizona on that bait. And they did the Rico. Jennifer from Jeff International was importing the Ricos for Rick Clun and John Murray. Remember the Ricos and the Labina Lures and all that stuff? Yeah. And they came out with these little magentas, and it's the coolest little spoonbill little jerkbait. And they're in that other room over there because I cornered the market when they were going to discontinue them. I told Jennifer, I said, I want all of them because I never want to be without magentas. So that magenta won me a tournament, and then I started. To your point, I still have boxes and boxes and boxes of magentas, and they're this cool little spoonbill that
was the very first item I sold on eBay. Was out of you for fishing tackle wise. Yeah. Because beforehand, like I said beforehand, I was putting an ad in the newspaper and selling gumball machines and all these antique stuff for people, and somebody die in the family and they had a collection of baseball cards. That's what I was running on eBay at the time. Yeah. And then you were like, you had a garage full of just so much stuff. So remember, every time I would come out, I would just list a bunch of stuff. We'd sell it. Boom, boom. We got enough money to go to Columbia River. Let's go. And boom, we're gone.
And then Michelle at Mercury, and she's watching this show. I told her you're going to be a guest, and she said, make sure you tell Brody. Michelle is in charge of Mercury out there. Mercury, love you. And Michelle was watching the show, but I go, hey, guess who's going to be a guest on the show this week? And Brody, like, you actually were working for her at every classic. You were part of the whole Spirit group. You and my buddy Rod Lee, who was just here. All my friends, we were all there together at the Bassmaster Classic, and you guys were like fire up the audience stuff.
Oh man, the classics were so much fun. And to do the one in Pittsburgh, which was closest to where I grew up, was probably the most fun of all, because that's when ESPN had ownership of it. And with a couple of our friends, we had the ESPN credit card those nights for the after hours parties. And man, let me tell you
we were ESPN was paying her. I was doing Bass Center. John Kern and I are doing Bass Center, ESPN, right at the point on the water. Like, we're going to the Heinz 57 people and hang out with the Heinz people, famously from Pittsburgh. And we had ESPN carte blanche back in the day. And that was a magical time. Hey, are you going to be at you're coming to Knoxville, right?
Yeah.
So Michelle called me, and I even told you this, so I'm going to tell it to you now. She just called me yesterday, the day before, and I get to give away the motor on Friday. I get to find the craziest fan in the arena. And so she goes,
T-shirts into the crowd and stuff
I'm the microphone guy, but I'm with all the T-shirt shooters and all that stuff. I go around. Anybody watching, if you're there Friday, I get to give away a 10 horsepower 9.9 Mercury outboard to the biggest fan that's a Mercury fan in the audience before the weigh-in on Friday. And then Livingston, we're giving away 25 lures each day to the first 25 people that come to the Livingston booth and say they're friends of Fishtails. Fishtails, FOFT, just like eBay. We're doing FOFT, right? So at the Livingston booth, we're giving away 25 lures. And then now Mercury, Michelle, she said, I need you an hour each day at the Mercury booth to sign autographs. And then I want you to give away a 10 horsepower at the arena on Friday. So, and then I'm going to see you, and we're going to go to your son's aquarium before that with my daughter.
Yeah. On Monday before the Classic. Yeah. In Gatlinburg. Yep. Yep. He's the aquarist at the Ripley's Aquarium.
How cool is that? Thanks for the invitation. So I'm bringing Camber and her friend to the Bassmaster Classic. I hope everybody watching, listening, as much as you can make it there, or even go online. We're going to be doing some social media stuff from there. But Camber is going to be working the booth, bro. And so we get to see your son. And my daughter gets to meet your son for the very first time.
That's great, man.
That's cool.
I look forward to that.
We've had these kids our whole lives. We've talked about our kids. You know what, Brody? That's what's wild. You have your best friends. A friend of mine a long time ago pointed this out on tour. We're all super close friends, but none of us have really been that much at each other's houses and lives. We're not like your normal set of friends. We don't go to dinner with each other. We don't spend holidays with each other. You know, we have this close-knit group of friends, but they're all in different states, and you see them all year long on tour, but I've never hung out with you and your son and everybody at the house, and you've never hung out with me and Camber at the house, and so we're having a reunion, not even a reunion. After 30 years of knowing each other, we put our kids together, and that's weird, isn't it? Considering how close the friends we are, that never happened.
I remember, I don't know where we were driving, and at the time, I think Gwen was probably 3 or 4, and Hunter was just born, and I'm talking to him on the phone, and you had like this switch. It's just like at that time you were definitely not a family man, but you saw what I was, experiencing, and you knew that's what you wanted.
Right.
And I saw that in you, and I'm very proud of the dad that you've become.
Yeah. Rick Clun said that too. He said, he goes, I knew you always wanted to have a kid. I just never thought it was going to happen. I didn't think it was, you get to be over 40. You're thinking, I'm not going to have a kid. I told my mom, I said, I'm not going to give you any grandkids. And I learned something, which I would go see Skeet at the blast off, and he's sitting in a corner in his little yellow boat, his big yellow boat, and we're rooming together, or we're not rooming together. I used to room with Ish and John Cruz and Ike and Ellie, but I'd see Skeet, one of my close friends, and I'd see tears rolling under his eyes, and I'd pull up in first day of the tournament, and he's sitting over there, and he's just miserable, and he's crying, and I'm like, dude, I pull up, and I'm single, I don't have kids, I don't relate to any of this, but he's like, I'm missing my daughter's daddy-daughter dance, or I'm missing her first tooth yesterday, or someone else is teaching her how to ride a bike, and he's crying before blast off the first day, and I'm like, I don't have that feeling of that unconditional love parenting thing in me, and I'm like, I can't relate to this. It's weird to see my best friend having this emotional breakdown. Dude, we're first day of the tournament, fire up, we're excited, it's go time, and he's devastated at blast off the first day because he missed his daddy-daughter dance, or his daughter learned how to ride a bike yesterday, and it was when
a lot of us had those sacrifices. In part two, when we were there, the average age was 28 to 35. So those people were just, starting their families or whatnot. The average age now is, 19, 20.
Yeah,
so most of these kids, don't have those responsibilities. So yeah, it's
and I didn't have that responsibility. So that's where I'm 30, 35, 40, and I don't have a young family. And my friends, Paul Elias, and a lot of my friends said when Cameron was born, and I had that aha moment, the Oprah Winfrey aha moment, where suddenly I could relate to all of the pain I saw all of my friends, missing all of these milestones, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I when she was 4, I quit. 4 or 5 years old. It was a forced retirement to go home and be close to her, but I had to quit, and go home, and I haven't missed a daddy-daughter dance, and I taught her how to ride a bike, and her first tooth came out in my hand, and I changed those diapers, and I was around at the early days, and I was all in, and parenting became more important to me than all of the. I didn't need to go to another Bassmaster Classic. I didn't need to qualify for another Classic or win another major tournament. But
you discussed this for years. Again, that's why I'm so proud of you, because that's what matters, dude. You're a dad.
You can't get it
And in
back.
the end, that's what matters.
You can't get it back. Like I
You
said,
can't get it back.
I'm watching the clock right now. You know, I leave here and go to volleyball, and we got
Right.
volleyball for 2 hours, and then I got pole vaulting tonight as well. So she's got a double hit today. She's got to go to volleyball
Yeah.
and track and field tonight to get a new pole because she's a major pole vaulter. But you know, I love these times. And then I got to go. I got to get a bunch of stuff on eBay now because we're doing this show, and it's gonna, guys. I got 100 things I'll put on
the
eBay.
child labor. You got to put her to work.
You know, I do. Oh my God. All right, I'm going to surprise you with this. I didn't lead you into it, but you have watched the show. We have this segment. It's called The One That Got Away. It doesn't need to be a fish. It could be anything in your life. But some people, and I'll give you some examples if you haven't seen it. For Rick Clunn, he's discovered the Teva sandals at the Grand Canyon when the rafters were wearing Teva sandals. The Holy Rollers. Do you remember we all wore Tevas?
Yeah.
The Holy Roller sandal, because you had those funny stripes in the Teva. So the Teva tan, and then the thumb bar. This right here. Rick Clunn was the one that came up with the idea of the thumb bar. He told the real companies, why do we need to have a push button? You know, why do we need to have a push button? Just have a thumb bar. So Rick Clunn is the origin of that, but he never got royalties on it. Dave Mercer was one of the very first guys doing YouTube, but he was interested in outdoor programming, so he chased television and left YouTube by the by. And then the amazing fish stories that got away. So I cue it up with Jim Bitter, The One That Got Away, Brody Broderick. Here comes the Jim Bitter moment, and afterwards, Brody Broderick, what's your one that got away? It could be one particular fish, or it could be something else beyond a fish.
The memory still haunts him. He lost by 2 ounces.
You know, it's really hard because I've been very fortunate, like I said, to all these dreams of things that I've dreamt in my head. I've been able to manifest. I would have loved to stand on that Bassmaster Classic and hold that stage, or hold that trophy. But I think the biggest thing that I missed was the injuries that I sustained on the tour. I think that the most that, I wouldn't say that got away from me, but things got away from me due in part to what we did to our body. I mean, I peeled the muscle off the bone plate in the palm of my hand. I've torn 2 collateral ligaments. I've ripped capsular sacs, all just in this one hand. And
is that from degenerative casting, or is it one particular thing that caused that?
This goes back to before I even fished the elites. Byron is living down in Lake Amistad, and he invites me down. I think we have an open that year that I'm getting ready to fish, and I go to Twin Butte. That's right. I'm not allowed. That's the elites. It's the elites. I'm not allowed to fish on your impoundment. So you're like, oh, you should go here. You should go there. And I'm like, well, what about Ivy? And she's like, yeah, dude, go to Ivy. Go to Ivy. Well, we were going to go to Ivy that day, and they have a huge tournament there. And Tidrow, my touring partner, he's just like, man, let's just go over to Twin Butte. It's right next door. So we go to Twin Butte. It's low as hell. Well, there's only one ramp open. It's totally surrounded by, I think there's mesquite trees or whatever. They're sucking up all the water there. Mm-hmm. And I don't know the lake. We don't have, GPS or nothing. I think it's the first or second year of GPS. And so I found this fence row, and I set up on a fish. And when I set the hook, the rod came out this way, and I wouldn't let go. And he wound up popping the muscle off the bone plate in the palm of my hand. I did that 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks before I got to your house to fish Amistad. That's what I did to my hand. I didn't know that. I just knew I did something to my hand. And then it got bad by the time I got home. And then I fished my first year of the elites with that hand injury, with no medical, nothing. I never had anything diagnosed. And then at Christmas, we were wrapping Christmas presents, and I was pushing a box together, and Sandy was taping it, and I heard my hand pop, like really loud. And it was like this release almost, like you feel that blood rush, And I'm like, wow, do you think my hand was dislocated or something for like 8 months or whatever? Well, no, that was the collateral ligament that was basically holding everything together. Just finally just went smack.
Oh no!
Yeah, so I get an appointment with Dr. Kremchek, which is a famous orthopedic surgeon. You know, he's worked on all these baseball players and all that stuff. And I'm figuring, hey, you know, if I'm going to get this done right, I've got to get fixed. And so he wants to put a pig ligament in my hand. And I chose not to do that. And I chose the 8-month, you know, physical, you know, therapy to be 100% of what it's going to be. It's never going to be 100% of what it was.
Right.
So I remember calling Trip Weldon and let him talk to Dr. You know, Kremchek and stuff. And, so they gave me a year off of exemption. And I got my picture up next to Derek Jeter there in his office down in Cincinnati. And so that's kind of cool to be in the, you know, the sports kind of medical hall of fame, I guess, with all the people that have gotten hurt and gotten fixed by Dr. Kremchek. I mean,
but he fixed your hand. He fixed your hand 100% from that injury.
Yeah, from you know, 100% of what it's going to be. So I came back to the elites, and I remember talking to Trip and at the time, I said this would go back to I guess my biggest regret or the biggest miss. Trip was like, you know, do you want to come straight back to the elites, or do you want to go to the opens, Brody? And he's like, you can have full reign on the opens. And at that time, you know, it's when I said I want to come back to the elites, and I probably shouldn't have, because it was a timing thing. You know how it was. You know, these events are set; they're on the schedule. You know, it's
right.
beyond what your healing time is, and you went through that with your back, you know, and all that stuff. And you know, once I made the elites, I'm like, you know, hey, my night, you know, is in front of me, and me and you can really shirt tail each other. We never got to.
Right.
We were hurt.
Right.
We were hurt. You missed a year when I was fishing, and then I missed a year when you were fishing, and we really never got to hook up as an elite force together because we were injured. So I think that's the one that got away from me, was that. Yeah, it's that injury.
That injury took it all out of you. That injury.
It did.
It came from a hook set at a local lake here in Texas.
Yeah.
It came from one particular hook set, popped it all to hell.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It sure did. Wow. And then you know, we'll go right back to the Denny Brower deer. We're at the last event, somewhere in New York, and that's when Denny, you know, he knew my hand was bad. I think I even had a cast on at that time at that last event. I had a cast, and Denny's, you know, he's like, "What are you going to do, Brody?" And I was like, "I'm done." You know, Kremchek says, I got to put a pig ligament in my hand. All this other stuff to, you know, and I was out of money at that time too, you know, and I'd been beat down and, you know, just did everything I could. And that's when I fell back on the business of eBay. And like I said, that's when Denny Brower was retiring, invited me out to the house, and, you know, and I was always really good friends with Chad. I mean, we kind of hooked up together when we were fishing the opens quite a bit. And so, yeah, I mean, all these friendships that I had been able to make all were because of you. Because we met that first day at Lake Murray because Bass forced you.
Right.
Like you know, and that, I wouldn't say forced, but that it's just, you know.
They made it too enticing not to. You had to have somebody. Otherwise, I remember I did not want to bring you to if I brought you to a tournament, I was guaranteed the use of my boat versus being one of the 12 guys at the end that were flipping coins and going boat on boat. Exactly. So instead of having to fish with a pro, I knew I was going to fish with a co-angler because I brought my co-angler. And that was a massive incentive to bring a co-angler. Even if you were drawing, you know, like Timmy Horton's Ninja co-angler, at least you were, you know, had somebody in the boat with you so that you had the free rein of your boat. So, I remember that. Wow, that's crazy.
So just, you know, all kind of snowballed from there. That was, 2002 or something like that. Yeah.
You know what?
And then there were other things too. I mean, like the Crown Royal and the Coca-Cola deal. You know, that kind of inspired from. We're in New Orleans. We're at the Bassmaster Classic. I think it's one of the first nights. We're at the party of Crown Royal. You invite me down there. I go up. I'm thinking I'm not going to know a soul. And right there on the balcony is John Story, who I had met because I was fishing the Hawk Tour like 2 years prior, way before I ever met you guys. There was what was called, similar to what this dual threat thing that these guys all signed up for. That's not the first one. The first one was in 2001, and I was Team Ohio. There were two of us from Ohio, And
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
I had met a bunch of guys on that tour, man. I think that's where Brian Frith came out of that tour. The Akins brothers came out of that tour. Daryl Roberson, they won the FLW championship, I think the year after that. Corey Kanoki, who you stayed at his place,
In
Corey.
Kentucky. Yeah, Kentucky. So they all so that was a big team tournament, like this dual threat fiasco.
Tournament. There was a lady named Judy Ramey, and she was out of the Redfish tours, and she got this brilliant idea. Hey, the Redfish team tours were working really well, and let's expand that into bass fishing. Well, I think she composed this hoping that she was going to sell it to Johnny Morrison. I think that's the real reason why she put this together. Was like, I'm going to put this together and then I'm going to sell it to them.
To
And then
Bass Pro
I
Shop.
think
Johnny Morris.
yeah,
Johnny
yeah,
Morris, Bass Pro Shop. Yeah.
yeah. And I think he was, there were 8 events, and that was scary. That was a scary time. So I really feel for those guys right now, because back then, I didn't know any of you guys. This was my first time ever leaving Ohio. They wanted like $15,000 deposit to
Ooh.
verify into this. They never had a tournament trail before or anything. It was pretty scary. And
Yeah.
me and Mike Tote, my partner here from Ohio, we fished a lot of team stuff before, and he was in our club. And so we made the pact to go do this. That's 8 weeks. I mean,
Yeah.
that's huge. We're we got little kids and, full-time jobs. And luckily enough, that's when I started the eBay thing, and I quit eBay, started fishing full-time. And that following years when we went on that tour, and it was pretty shaky. We wondered at times if those checks were going to bounce or what. And in the end, they all made good. And there were a lot of pros that ever, came out of that tour.
Wow.
And so it was because of that investment and the money that I had won on that tour, with the following year, Bass making the decision and getting the invite to do the non-boater, I had the money to be able to do that. And then come out west with you, all came from that little dual threat type of tour that we had. And yeah,
That was the
without that, I
springboard.
wouldn't have been able to do it.
Isn't it
Yeah.
amazing? I'm saying those certain things that are springboards. Like for me, the whole Western swing made it possible for me to go national. Winning my second U.S. Open, that trophy and check back there, and then the boat and the truck I got with it and all the other stuff. But winning over $100,000, that was suddenly like, hey, I got the money to go back east and invest in. And Rick Clunn, oh, by the way, yeah, Rick Clunn, he's over there saying, you got to go back east, man. Your fishing level is such that you're young, you're unencumbered, you don't have a wife and kids, you're hungry to fish, you've won 2 U.S. Opens. Take that money and donate it. This is what ends up happening. Take that money and donate it to the real fishermen back east. Because I was really good in my zip code. The whole Western United States was my oyster, dude.
Yeah.
I got running up and down the West and 3rd in the all-time money winner list, and 14, 15 boats, whatever it is. You're like, boats and trucks and checks, and I'm having fun. And they're like, now go fish with the big boys.
Yeah.
Find out what it's like, Brody, when you have a day. Rick and I were talking about this in the very last thing. Blowing 40, ice on the water, cold front, sunny day, front came through. You're like, wow, this is one day they didn't catch them. And when you go to the weigh-in, it's that like, oh my gosh. Like you and all your friends pull up.
Like,
yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
It's like, seriously?
Right. And it's like you pull up and there's your boys. Here's Ish and Iconelli and Cruz and Skeet and Murray and Aaron. And they're like, yeah, no, 20 pounds, 12 pounds. I got 8 pounds. Well, I got a limit. I got 13 pounds. Maybe I'm okay. And then there's Biffle, 22 pounds. And there's Brower, 27 pounds. And Van Dam. And you're like, not today. Not on this lake. Not possible. And it's like, oh my God, I am getting my teeth kicked in on days when everybody I know and I would swear it was not a good day for fishing.
Yeah, I swear it was like every day for me on the lanes. I was getting my teeth kicked in. I'll tell you, boy. But
isn't it humbling?
I don't regret
it was
any
so
of
humbling.
Yeah.
It was so humbling. I don't regret it either. And to your point, when I quit, I got the phone call. It's like, you got to come home. We had just finished Florida. I was driving to South Carolina. Keith Murray were waiting for me at the house. And they're like, dude, things aren't good back home. You can't focus anymore. You got to call Michelle. You got to call your sponsors, Mercury, Triton, Armin, everybody, and say, I'm quitting the tour in the middle of the season. Actually, the second event of the season, because I got to go home and be a family man. I got to go home and circle the wagon and raise my kid. I got a lot of, and to your point, When you sign up for that, you jump off that, it's like dropping out. There's no coming back. You don't just say, I don't get an emotional
I went
exemption.
into the shadows, dude. I mean,
Yep.
you guys, the entire fishing community kept me afloat working, but I was behind the scenes. I quit going to the Classic. I quit going to iCast. I pretty much was social media and didn't even talk about it. A lot of people didn't know what happened to Brody.
Yeah.
They thought he had walked off the end of the earth, and I kind of did. I did it doing parts for my business, and I don't want people to know who I sell for and stuff, and there's that. But yeah, it was part of it. It probably took me 5-6 years to get over that, because you're always going to have that feeling inside.
I went cold turkey. Like when I quit, I came home. I didn't know when there was another tournament. I would call my friends like Skeeter Murray. I'd check in with them, and they're like, "I'm practicing." I go, "Practicing for what?" And then all these young guys came up, and I didn't even know. I don't know their names. Like all these new guys have come on, and I'm like, I literally, for my own sanity, I had to completely shut it off. I had to quit Major League Fishing, and I was one of the original 24. I had to quit the Elite Tour. I had to quit all my television stuff. So I had no social media. Now all this real Byron Velvic stuff and all this Instagram. That's all because of this podcast. But I literally went into a hole, and I said, I don't want to even walk into my friend's tire shop. He has a truck place, and he's got Major League Fishing playing, and I don't even want to look at it on the monitor, because it's like, it's just this stab in your heart.
It was. And here I am. I'm still selling fishing stuff. I'm waking up every day and having to go through crankbaits and stuff, but yet I kind of despised what I got myself into. It's like,
no.
And then finally, my buddy Tidrow, he's always been there, and he was just out of the blue. He's like, "You need a little competition, dude." He's like, let's start fishing the Tuesday nighters, Thursday nighters around here, and get back into it a little bit.
Really? So your buddy got you. They got back on the water. They got you just back to give it a little bit of a chance.
Yeah. And it's been fun, just to get out there and continue to apply the trade.
Yeah.
There is that self-satisfaction sometimes.
I'll fish a little tournament with Camber. I'll fish a little tournament when I can. I used to take my daughter to these tournaments and say, whatever we win, I'll let you have. Let her have the little trophy, some of the trophies and the little check. So I had a deal where, Camber, we're going to fish this tournament, and she could put the little trophy up in her room and get a little bit of money and go shopping. She got her very first American Girl doll because I told her we're fishing a tournament. She buys a $200 American Girl doll from being out on the water with Dad. It's like, how cool is this? It's like, when she's 6-7 years old, she wants a $200. I'm like, hey, if you want this American Girl doll, that's an expensive store with an expensive doll. You got to come out and fish a tournament with me. And even at 6, 7, 8 years old, it's that aha moment that I go fishing with Dad. We make a check. I get to buy a new cool toy. And that was fun, man. Yeah. That was awesome. So, oh my gosh. Well, let's talk about new toys. Rick Clunn. I still got the Rick Clunn lures I'm selling. The Rick Clunn autographed pose.
Dude, that's an old pose?
That's an old pose, dude. That's an old. Rick Clunn signed a bunch of these, and it's like
I can't believe that is the bubble pack still connected to it? Because over the time the glue. Wow, see, that's some good glue job there. Most of the glue jobs on those were just inevitably just came apart.
Can you see the date on it? 90.
Nice.
Pose 1990 autographed.
I was a senior in college.
Rick Clunn autographed it in 1990 pose, dude. And it's like, those are the things on eBay that are awesome because they don't get open. This is going to go in somebody's man cave. It's the collector's items like that, or the Rego, the old, this Rego solid wood bait. I would never throw this thing because, dude, once that tail breaks, you're heartbroken.
Yeah.
But it's like the collector's items are cool, and the eBay stuff it's exciting. It just takes so much time. That's the hard part. The hard part is shipping, labeling, and sending all of this. That's where I got to put that.
You're all one person, for and when like me, I've been running an average of 200 to 300 auctions every week for 26 years.
Wow.
Fishing and non-fishing.
Oh my gosh. I'm just going to get started again. I mean, I think this next week, 2-3 weeks, because you told me the spring is the best time. And
Yeah,
that's last year was great.
Seasonal patterns, dude. That's what you got to go
seasonal patterns. And put my daughter to work back there, get her to work and start working.
Child labor's the best, bro.
But nobody can write the descriptions. The hard part is it's like,
well, that's the hard, that's where the carpal tunnel comes in. You get the fingers going.
Dude, it's so hard because you taught me, you're like, the description and everything is everything. Those of you that are watching, you got to check out Brody of the Lake and Byron's Bunker. I'll put all this stuff here. And FOFT is the tagline. Friends of Fishtails. I mean, they that's like, I know you got extra little bags of worms you can throw in there or a little crankbait. I got so much cool shit. And so when I get somebody and they're like, hey, or they're fans of it, I'm like, gosh, I got to throw you guys something cool just for being a fan of the show. So God, this is awesome, dude. It's great to have you on the show. I get to hear stories that I forgot about. Like, it's just, we've gone back so many years.
There's been so much, dude. Like your Bachelor stuff, and me and you flying me and Sandy to New York for the world premiere. I mean, there's so many things we could. Yeah,
you were in Times Square with me. Remember that? Yeah, we were walking around
Aaron and Leslie, and
Aaron, Leslie, you guys, we were all in
Times Square. Wave Worm. Who's the guy from Wave Worm was up there with us?
Stan Garzini, the Garzini weenie.
Yeah, Stan the man.
Stan the Garzini weenie. Biggest, not a good person, bad thief guy. Yeah, no, not a good story there.
Oh, I didn't know that. But anyway, Kumar was there.
Kumar
showed up for a couple drinks. Yeah, we had a good time, man.
Downtown New York for the premiere of The Bachelor on Times Square. That was crazy.
Times Square.
Oh my god.
Yeah, dude. I mean, stuff like that. That's special.
I love it. I love all of it, dude.
I love you.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. So everybody, the reason he's in his car, this is our third attempt. We did this at the house on Wi-Fi. No bueno.
Randy Blockett in my car.
He's not Randy Blockett. He's not doing his Randy Blockett. But if you live in a place where your self-service or internet service is bad, it's like he had to go 5G up on the hill. Kent Brown had to do the same thing. So
yeah. I can actually see the tower right there. Literally, I'm like parked like 600 yards from the 5G tower. I live way out in the country, so it's just, we don't have no fiber or anything. I still got phone lines, dinosaur equipment, but we still manage the eBay store, so we rock it when we can.
Byron's Bunker on eBay and Brody of the Lake on eBay. A lot of pictures to come, a lot of shorts to add to this, and I want to thank everybody for joining us. Come to the Bassmaster. Brody, are you going to be hanging out at the Bassmaster Classic?
We'll see. I'm going to be down there the week before, so we'll see if I can stay away that long. Like I said, the Classic's pretty busy time for me on eBay, so I kind of need to be home doing it. But no, we're going to hook up that Monday before. I know me and you are, but we'll see if I can make it over there. Actually, I talked to Skeet and some other guys, so there's that possibility I might come over.
Well, you guys might meet Brody at the Livingston Lure booth or over at the Mercury booth with Michelle. Hi, Michelle. We love you. And I want to thank everybody for joining us on an amazing show. Check out the eBay stuff. Check out Brody of the Lake all the way across the board. Hopefully you get to meet both of us at the Classic. If you go to the Classic.
Locate, catch, and win.
Locate, catch, and win. That's been his byline forever. Locate, catch, and win. Dude, I love you, brother. Thank you so much for sharing this with me, man.
Thank you
so
much,
enjoy
man.
it. So, guys, check out all the eBay stuff and also check out livingstonlures.com. Come to the Livingston booth. Go to the Mercury booth. Enjoy the Bassmaster Classic. If you can't make it, you can at least go online and enter to win a bunch of the stuff they're giving away. So, all kinds of great things. And leave a comment section here. Please like, subscribe, and then Real Byron Velvic, because I got these social medias now. I just got into this. But Facebook is Byron Velvic. Instagram, TikTok is REEL Byron Velvic. So check me out there. Follow all the stuff there. And Brody's going to have all of his social medias on here too. So Brody, we're going to promote you as well. We got
awesome, man. I appreciate that.
All right,
I like staying in the shadows usually, but I'll crawl out every now and then.
Oh, not for eBay, dude. We're shining a bright light on the store today.
Ring the bell, baby. Sell out.
Sell out, dude. Get those auctions. Get all those auctions going. Bye, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Fish Tales. We're out.
Fish Tales has been brought to you by Livingston Lures. Learn more at livingstonlures.com. Fish Tales is also supported by these fine sponsors: Trika Fishing, Mercury Outboards, and Canis Boats.